6. I welcome you from the 1 week recess. The 1 week holiday. Welcome back to our usual business. Teacher Brian is here with you to share and also get to know what you have there. Now, the previous days were looking at the different types of sentences, and we closed that chapter. Now we are moving to something new, and I want us to look at the conditional sentences. The conditional sentences. Now you may be asking yourself there, what are these conditional sentences? Actually, a conditional sentence is a sentence that has a condition. Let's go through what I have here together. We are saying here, conditional sentences are called so because they contain a condition. They have a condition within the sentence there. And we are saying a condition is something needed first for another thing to happen. In other words, these conditional sentences always have what we call the result. That's why we are saying a condition is something needed first for another thing to happen. Meaning, these conditional sentences always have outcome, what we call the results. Now, let's move on. We are saying conditional sentences are of 3 types or 3 categories. The first one, we have the if-one conditional sentences. Then we have if-two conditional sentences. And the third one is the if-three conditional sentences. I have listed them here, where I am saying the first one is if-one conditional sentences, the second one is if-two conditional sentences, and the third one is if-three conditional sentences. Now, I'm now going to take you through the rules. Let's go through some of these rules together, and I want you to be very observant here. Look at the rules that I'm going to take you through. Each structure of each sentence we write in English language is guided by certain rules. Now, these conditional sentences also have rules that guide them, or rules that guide us on how to use them. Let's begin with this very first rule here, where we are saying all these conditional sentences have 2 parts. We have the main clause and the if clause. The if clause and the main clause. Let's read through this simple sentence together. We are saying all the above 3 conditional sentences have 2 clauses. Now, what does that one mean? Meaning that all these conditional sentences have 2 different parts. As I told you, the first one is actually we can use them in either way. We have the if clause, which contains the condition. Okay? Which contains the condition. Then we have the main clause, which has the outcome. Or if you don't want to call it outcome, you can say the result. Okay? Let's look at it. So we are saying we have the if clause here, as I've told you, which has the condition. Then the main clause, which has the result. Now, we are saying a conditional sentence can begin with either clause. Meaning it can begin with the main clause or the if clause. In other words, you can start your sentence with the if clause or the main clause. And we are saying once you start your sentence with the if clause, a comma is applied after writing the condition. A comma is applied after writing the condition. Whereas when you start it with the main clause, we don't need a comma. Let's look at here. We are saying a conditional sentence can begin with any of the 2 clauses. What do we mean here? Can begin with any of the 2, either the main clause or the if clause. But when we start with the if clause, what do? the sentence must have a comma. We shall look at that when we start looking at each of the conditional sentences. Now, allow me move to if one. Let's move to if one. Now, we are having the if one conditional sentences. Now, what do we do under if one? Now, let's read through this together. We're saying if one conditional sentences tell us what will happen if a certain condition is fulfilled or if certain thing is done. What will happen? Sometimes we call it the likely, what is likely to happen if a certain condition is fulfilled or if certain thing is done. What will happen? That's what if one conditional sentences tell us. Okay? Here we look at what will happen if a certain condition is fulfilled. Or sometimes people say the likely happening if certain thing is done. Let's move on. In other words, what we always talk about what will happen in the nearby time if a given condition is fulfilled. Then we're also saying in if one conditional sentences, here now I want you to be very careful. Here, this is the major concern under if one. In if one conditional sentences, we use present simple tense in the if clause. That sentence, that part of the sentence which has if, we use present simple tense under if one. Then the main clause, in most cases we always use the future simple tense. Now here, how do we use the future simple tense? We are basically guided by these two helping verbs, shall and will, which are used to express actions in the future. So we use these two, another use shall and will to express the future simple tense. I hope we are moving on together, okay? I'm going to repeat this. In if one, in the two clause, the two parts, under if clause, we use present simple tense. And in the main clause, we use the future simple tense, where we are guided, or we basically use these two helping verbs, shall and will. Now, let's look at some of the examples of these sentences which fall under the if one, where we are saying something may happen if a certain condition is fulfilled. Let's look at some of the examples. I've put here if clause and may clause. I want to put them in that category so that you get to see them. Now, I have my example here. If we write well, the teacher will appreciate our work. If we write well, the teacher will appreciate our work. You see that? What is the condition here? The condition is here, we should write well if we want the teacher to appreciate our work. Let me put it down for you here. If we write well. Now, one of the rules there was telling us that once you start the sentence with the if clause, you put a comma. You put a what? A comma. So when you are writing this, if we write well, I put my comma. So this is the if clause. This is the if part of the sentence. Now let's look at what will be the outcome if we write well. The teacher will appreciate our work. And I put my full stop there. Let's read through it together as saying, if we write well, the teacher will appreciate our work. This is one of the sentences. So this is how we make a sentence in if 1. Let's look at another example. Still, I'm going to put them. I'll put this part to show you the if part, the if clause. Then I'll put this part to show you the main clause. Let's look at example 2. I'm going to use some verbs to make these sentences. Let me use the verb come. The verb come. If daddy comes back early, we shall eat supper with him. You see that? Let me put it down here. If daddy comes back early. I put my comma there since I've started with the if. If daddy comes back early, now I'm putting the other main clause. What will be the outcome? We shall eat. Let me continue with it up here. We shall eat supper together with him. So this sentence is telling us that for us to eat supper together with the dad, he has to come back early. So the condition there, he has to come back early. If he does not come back early, we shall not eat supper with him. Let's look at that. We can also turn that sentence and we begin with the main clause. How will it be if we begin with the main clause? This is how it will be. We shall eat supper together with the dad if he comes back early. You get to that? We shall eat supper together with the dad if he comes back early. Even still, the first one, we can start with the main clause, okay? Where we shall say, the teacher will appreciate our work if we write well. So we can start the sentence in either way. Let's look at another example. Now, in this case, here I'm going to